Okay, so we're going to do exercise 16.3. So this is about the first degree price discrimination in monopoly, where the firm is able to tell exactly what type of consumer you are and how much you are willing to pay. Okay, so the firm is able to tell every information about each of the individual consumer in the market. So if you come to the firm, they will be able to tell exactly how much you are willing to pay, and they are going to be able to do that for all of the consumers in the market. Okay, so that is the requirement for the first degree price discrimination, in which the firm is going to charge the maximum willingness to pay for each of the consumer in order to extract all of the consumer surplus. Okay, so just bear in mind that in the first degree price discrimination, there won't be any consumer surplus because the consumers are paying the maximum that they are willing to pay to the firm, to the monopoly. Okay. All right, so in this question, we are given a willingness to pay curve, which is equal to 200 minus 3Q. Now remember, the willingness to pay is just the demand curve. Okay. All right, so the demand curve is telling you how much the consumer is willing to pay for the product. Okay, so this is the demand curve for the market. It's telling you how much in total all the consumers are willing to pay for a certain level of output. Okay, so the marginal cost of production for the firm is equal to 20. It's asking you to draw on a diagram average and marginal revenue curves where there is no price discrimination and a marginal cost curve. Okay. So first of all, we will have to find the total revenue first in order to find the average and the marginal revenue. Okay, so total revenue is going to be, so it's Q, it's going to be equal to the price times the quantity Q, okay? And the price is just going to be given by the willingness to pay over here, which is the 200 minus 3Q. Okay, remember willingness to pay is the demand curve, which is telling you for a certain level of quantity how much the consumer is willing to pay, which is the price, okay, in the market, and multiply by the quantity. So you get 200Q minus 3Q squared. Okay, so from here you should be able to find the average revenue, which is just going to be equal to the total revenue divided by the total quantity Q. Okay, so I got 200Q minus 3Q squared, everything divided by Q, and that will just give me 200 minus 3Q. Okay, and the marginal revenue is just going to be the differential of the total revenue function with respect to quantity. Okay, so if I differentiate my total revenue here, I will get 200 minus 6Q. All right, so now I should be able to draw these functions on a diagram together with the marginal costs. Okay, so again, I will just have a very normal diagram where I put all of the costs, so total revenue, average revenue, marginal cost whatsoever on a vertical, okay, and just the quantity on horizontal. Okay, so I'm going to draw the average revenue first. Now, so as you can see, this is just a linear function of Q, so it's just going to be a straight line with a vertical intercept of 200 and a horizontal and a slope -3. Okay. So over here, I will just find out, okay, horizontal intercept is where, okay, so make vertical intercept first, which is what I normally do. Okay, so vertical intercept is where I make Q equal to 0, and so therefore average revenue is going to be equal to 200. So I'm just going to plot that in here. So I would say this is okay, I'll say 100 is here, and therefore 200 is here. Okay, so that's a vertical intercept. Now horizontal intercept is going to be where I put average revenue equal to 0, and so therefore solving for Q, I'll get Q equal to 200 on 3. Okay, So that it's just going to be, say, somewhere here, doesn't matter, okay? So that is my horizontal intercept. So if I connect these 2 points together, I'll get my average revenue curve. Okay. And as you can see, average revenue is just going to be the demand curve, and it's just the willingness to pay curve. They are exactly the same thing. Okay. Now for the marginal revenue, again, we do the same thing. Vertical intercept is where I set Q equal to 0. So therefore, marginal revenue is 200. So that is just the vertical intercept over here. And horizontal intercept is where I set marginal revenue equal to 0. And so therefore, Q is 200 on 6. Okay, so 200 on 6 is just half of the 200 on 3. So that is just going to be somewhere here, I would say. All right, so again, if I connect these 2 points, vertical and horizontal intercept together, I will get the marginal revenue curve. Okay, and the last thing I want to do is the marginal cost, which is equal to 20. Okay, so this is 200. So I say it's 100 over here. So this is 25. Okay, so 20 will just be roughly around here. Okay, sorry, so I will just make 20 here. Okay, and then what I want to do is I moved here, so it won't be cutting. Okay, so if I draw a straight line over here, that is going to be my marginal cost. Okay, and that is at 20. Okay, so the next part asking you on a diagram, calculate the profit maximizing level of output and the price that the firm will charge, the firm's profit, and the welfare loss. Okay, so in part 3 over here, it should be the welfare loss when there is no price discrimination. Okay, so it's just a typo over here. So we want to find out a welfare loss when there isn't any price discrimination. And then after that, we will explain how the outcomes are going to change when the price discrimination is permitted. Okay, so in part 3 over here is asking to find welfare loss when there is no price discrimination. Okay, so the firm is going to be maximize profit at the point where marginal revenue is equal to marginal cost. So that is going to be the point here. Okay, so that is the Q star over here, where marginal revenue is equal to marginal cost. Okay, so the monopoly is going to be maximizing its profit, okay, by producing at a point where marginal revenue is equal to marginal cost. Now, marginal revenue is found earlier equal to 200 minus 6Q, and marginal cost is 20. Okay, so therefore, Q equal to, okay, so that is 180 divided by 6, so Q is going to be equal to 30. Okay, so this is Q star, which is the profit maximizing level of output. Okay, and so how much the firm is going to charge? Okay, so the price that, okay, monopoly is charging the firm. So if you substitute Q star back into our willingness to pay or the demand function, so that is going to give you the price P star, which is equal to willingness to pay star. And so that is just going to be 200 minus 3Q, okay, which is 3 times 30, this is 90, so that's 110. Okay, so if you are, in terms of a diagram, if you're going all the way up into our willingness to pay curve, you're going to get the price, which is here. Okay, and so, sorry. Yep, and that is the price 110. So that is P star. Okay. Okay, and how much profit the firm is going to make and what is the deadweight loss? Okay, so the profit is just going to be, so the maximum profit, okay, I call is pi star. It's just going to be the difference between the total revenue minus total costs. Okay. Okay, so total revenue is P times Q star, and total cost is just going to be, in this case, the marginal cost times Q star. Now, everyone remember, total cost is equal to average cost multiplied by the quantity. Okay, so bear in mind that total cost is average cost multiplied by the quantity Q. Okay, and if the marginal cost is constant, then average cost is going to be equal to the marginal cost. That's only when the marginal cost is constant. Okay, as marginal cost is constant. So average cost is equal to marginal cost. Okay, now normally they are different. Okay, so when you try to find a profit, you would not be able to use the marginal cost over here, because what we want to do is we want to find the total cost, which is average cost multiplied by the quantity. Okay, so if the marginal cost is not constant, then what you have to do is you will have to try to find the average cost, or try to find the total cost instead of using the formula where the marginal cost multiplied by the quantity. Okay, this is only works if the marginal cost is constant, because that is the only case where average cost is going to be equal to the marginal cost. Okay, otherwise it wouldn't work. Okay, otherwise in order to find the total cost, you will have to find, you will either have to use the integral formula that we studied before. It is going to be the area under the marginal cost, okay, and from the quantity 0 up into the profit maximizing level of output. Okay, so in this case, basically the total cost is the rectangle under the marginal cost over here. Okay, so when the marginal cost is constant, the total cost is just going to be equal to the marginal cost multiplied by the quantity Q star, which is the rectangle over here, as you can see. Okay, however, if the marginal cost is not constant, then the total cost is not going to be equal to marginal cost multiplied by quantity anymore. It is going to be the area under the marginal cost. Okay, so I will say over here, if marginal cost is not constant, then the way to find the total cost is going to be the integral between 0 and Q star for the marginal cost function dq. Okay, so it's going to be just the area under the marginal cost, but it is not going to be, so it's different from marginal cost times Q. It's not the same. Okay, so you can't use this formula to find the total cost. You will have to use this formula over here. But in this case, because we have a constant marginal cost, so it is fine for us to use marginal cost multiplied by Q star, as you can see, because it's just the rectangle under the marginal cost anyway. Okay, so it's okay to use marginal cost times Q star. Okay, so we got P star is 110, Q star is 30, marginal cost is 20. And Q star is 30, so that is so basically 90, so that 2,700 for the profit. Okay, and what is the deadweight loss for the monopoly? Okay, so the deadweight loss is just going to be like we studied before. It's just the difference between the welfare under the socially optimal level and the welfare under the monopoly. Okay, so it's just going to be Now, if anyone remember, the socially optimal level of output is where the marginal cost is cutting the demand curve, okay, or the average revenue, which is the point over here, okay. So this is the socially, okay, optimal level of output, okay. So first of all, we would like to find out what is the level of output there first. Okay, so to find dead weight loss, the first thing we want to find is to find a socially optimal level of output. And that is found by equating the average revenue and the marginal cost curve, okay? So average revenue is 200 minus 3Q. And that equal to 20. So it's going to give you Q equal to 60, I think. Yeah. Okay, so that equal is Q0. Okay, so Q0 over here equal to 60. All right, so after finding the socially optimal level of output, we know that the dead weight loss is going to be just the triangle, okay, below the average revenue above the marginal cost, and between the quantity Q star to quantity Q0, just like what we derived earlier in the previous tutorial. Okay, so in this case, the dead weight loss is just going to be the little yellow triangle over here on the right, which is the difference, okay, the area below the average revenue curve, okay, above the marginal cost, okay, restricted by the quantity Q star to the quantity Q0. So that's just the area over here, okay? So this is my dead weight loss. Okay, so in this case, the dead weight loss is just going to be the triangle there. So the area is half of the rise times the run, so half of this height over here, which is between 20 and 110. Okay, times the horizontal, which is from the quantity Q0 to quantity Q star. So that's 60 minus 30. Okay, so I got 90 times 30, so that's 2,700 divided by 2, and that is 1,350. Okay, so that is my value of the dead weight loss here. Okay, and the next part is asking you, if now we assume that we are allowed, so the firm is allowed to use the first degree price discrimination, how is that going to change all the outcomes? Okay, so the first degree price discrimination is where the firm is charging every consumer their maximum willingness to pay. Okay, so therefore, this is not going to be the uniform pricing P equal to 110 anymore. It is going to be every little single different prices for different consumer depending on their willingness to pay. So for example, if someone buying at this much, okay, which is 1 unit, so if you're going up to their willingness to pay, which is here, corresponding to the willingness to pay, this is how much they will have to pay to the firm. Okay, so this is basically the firm's profit. Sorry, the firm's revenue. What is the firm charging? So basically, the firm is going to charge following the maximum willingness to pay for all the consumers. Okay, so therefore, the first degree price discrimination, the firm is going to be producing not at the point where marginal revenue equal to marginal cost, but at the socially optimal level of output, because that is the maximum the firm can get. Now, as you can see, why would a firm want to produce more than Q star? Okay. Now, if the firm continue to produce beyond Q star, for example, say over here, say Q. Now, with this quantity Q star, the firm know that this is the consumer's willingness to pay. Okay, corresponding to the willingness to pay curve. So the firm will be able to charge this much. And it's only cost the firm 20, the marginal cost is only 20, which is here, to produce this much of quantity. So to produce this much of quantity, the willingness to pay, which is the price that the firm can charge per unit, is still higher than the cost per unit. And so therefore, it's still profitable for the firm to produce this quantity over here. Okay. So as you can see, by being able to charge the consumer their maximum willingness to pay, the firm will have incentive to continue to produce up until this point over here, where the consumer's willingness to pay is equal to the firm's cost, to the firm's marginal cost. Okay. Now the firm would not want to produce beyond this point, because the consumer is willing to pay less than whatever it costs the firm to produce, which is going to give the firm a loss. Okay. So therefore, the firm is going to produce up until this socially optimal level of output, because the price the firm can charge the consumer is going to be higher than the cost that the firm will have to incur up until this point. Okay. So therefore, if with the first degree price discrimination, okay, then the firm is going to be produce the monopoly. Okay, so it's going to be produced at, so instead of producing at marginal revenue equal to marginal cost as before, is now going to produce at the socially optimal level of output. Okay. All right, which is basically at the point where the average revenue is equal to marginal cost, and so the quantity is going to be 60. All right, so the firm is going to produce 60 units of output. Now, how much would the firm make? What is going to be the firm's profit? So like I said, the firm is going to charge all the maximum willingness to pay. So therefore, it's going to be the whole area over here. So it's going to be the whole area below the average revenue curve up until the quantity is 60. That is how much the total revenue the firm is going to get. Okay. So that is just the whole, sorry, the area. Okay, so the whole area over here below the average revenue curve, okay, up until the quantity Q star, Q0, this is the total revenue for the firm under the first degree price discrimination, because this is how much they are charging all the consumers up to this quantity. They're charging the maximum willingness to pay. Okay, so the total revenue is that. Now, what is the total cost for the firm? Again, total cost is just going to be the marginal cost multiplied by the total quantity. Marginal cost is 20 over here, total quantity is 60. So as you can see, the bottom rectangle, which is, I'm going to highlight in blue, okay, it's going to be the firm's total cost. Okay, so this is the firm's total cost under the price discrimination. Okay. So this is the total revenue for the firm under the price discrimination. So as you can see, the firm's profit is a difference between total revenue minus total cost. So that is going to be the big triangle, the big top triangle over here. Okay. So the firm's profit under the price discrimination. So I say P, okay, is going to be the total revenue P minus the total cost P. And so as you can see that it's just going to be the top triangle over here, okay? All right, so the top triangle is just going to be half times 200 minus 20, which is the high, and the bottom, the horizontal, is just going to be 60, okay? And so therefore it's going to be 180 and 60 and divided by 2. So that is going to be 5,400. Okay, so the profit for the firm in this case is a lot higher than the profit before, because the firm can use the first degree price discrimination to extract all the consumer surplus. Okay, and as you can see, all of the deadweight loss before is now become part of the firm's profit. Okay, so there isn't any deadweight loss anymore because the firm is producing at the socially optimal level of output. So there is no deadweight loss in the first degree price discrimination, and all of the deadweight loss before now become part of the firm's profit. Okay. All right, and sorry, it's asking you to find a consumer surplus as well before the price discrimination and afterwards. So before the price discrimination, consumer surplus is the area below demand curve, above the price, up until the quantity bought by the consumer. So as you can see, it's going to be the little triangle over here at the bottom, sorry, at the top. So it just basically the difference between whatever the consumer is willing to pay and what they actually have to pay for all the units that they bought. Okay, so before price discrimination, this top triangle over here is the consumer surplus. Okay, so I'll say consumer surplus before the price discrimination. Okay, so over here, I'll do it here. So consumer surplus, it just half of the triangle there is, the high is 200 minus 110, and the horizontal is just Q star, which is 30. So that is 90 and 30. Okay, which is 2,700, and so that 1,350. Okay, so that's the consumer surplus before. Now, as you can see, all of the consumer surplus now become part of the firm's profit as well. The consumer will get nothing left because they are being charged their maximum willingness to pay. Okay, so consumer surplus now become part of the firm's profit. Deadweight losses now become part of the firm's profit. And whatever the firm was earning before, which is the little white rectangle over here, now is also the firm's profit. Okay, so therefore, so as you can see, if you add all the firm's profit, consumer surplus, deadweight loss together. So deadweight loss, the firm's profit, and the consumer surplus before the price discrimination. If you add all of them up, it's going to give you the firm's profit now after the price discrimination. Okay, so everything the firm is basically capturing now. So no more consumer surplus. Okay, so I'll say consumer surplus is 0. Okay, because all the consumers pay their maximum willingness to pay. Okay, so basically they pay whatever they're happy to pay, which is nothing. So they will not have any surplus left. And so that weight loss is now 0 as well. Okay, because the firm is producing at the socially optimal level of output. All right, so therefore all the firm's profit, all the consumer surplus, the deadweight loss, and the firm's profit, now it just becomes the firm's profit with the price discrimination. All right.